everybody.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's HR mentorship series. And our facilitator for today is Mr. Michael Essien, and he will introduce himself in more detail in a bit. The topic for today is fundamentals of HR competencies. Thank you for listening. Over to you, Mr. Michael.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Essien. Currently, I'm with Jumail Nail Consulting, a consultant with Jumail Nail. I've been in the HR space for over 8 years. And today, we'll be looking briefly at the fundamentals of competency framework. Okay, I'm about to share my screen with you. Sorry about that. Come in. Can you see my screen, everybody, please? Can anybody see my screen, please? Can anybody see my screen, please?
Not really, it's just an image that is there, blank image, white, peach, and is it blue or purple?
That's the screen. That's actually the screen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So just like I said, the topic is fundamentals of competency framework. So we'll just move quickly into the introduction. And it says, research has it that it's 9% of organizations defined as the best organizations in the world have competencies defined for all roles versus 48 others of them that doesn't. Now, what is competency framework? Competency framework is a structure that sets out and defines each individual competency, such as problem solving or people management, required by individuals working in an organization or part of an organization. So it is what we need as an organization, as a department, as a professional to function optimally at our duty place. It is the requirements, the skills, the necessary abilities that we require to have before we can competently say that we are able to give our best at a particular task. That is what it's all about. Now, I'll run briefly into the definition of key terms. So, what is competency, or competence rather? Competence as defined by the Chambers Dictionary is the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. So employers always set out to describe those necessary abilities, those necessary skills that are needed by individuals to be able to accomplish a particular task. Now, just like I said, the employer sets out to describe competence for most roles within a company, as this definition is to enable employees and also employers to understand what it means to be competent in any given role. So it helps you it helps your line manager, it helps your organization as a whole to make you more effective and more efficient at your job role. That is what the whole essence is all about. What is framework? Framework is defined as a basic structure, plan, or system or concept that supports decision making. So by using framework to determine competency, you can manage employees and team much more effectively and cohesively, because the framework will tell you what is needed by each individual, by each job role for such task or for such job role to be 100% effective at delivering on its tasks. So what are competencies? Our competencies actually link three parameters, which is the skills, knowledge, and attitude. Some persons or some studies would say skills, knowledge, and behavior. But the three parameters are, just like I said, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude. So according to SHAM, the Society of Human Resource Management, competency is a group of highly interrelated knowledge, skills, and abilities, and other characteristics, which we call KSAOs, that give rise to behavior needed to perform on a given job effectively. Now, according to SHAM, what they are trying to let us know is that for an individual to be able to perform well in his role, he must have the necessary behaviors, he must have the necessary abilities, he must have the necessary knowledge to carry on a task. Because just like the normal adage would say that a workman who doesn't know his who doesn't know how to go about his duties always quarrels with his or her tools. So with the right framework in place and the right competency in place, individuals in a particular role will be able to determine for themselves if they are able and if they are fit to carry out a particular task as assigned to them in that particular role. Now, normally, competency can either be task-oriented or skill-focused. Skill-focused in terms of necessary attitudes and behavior, task-oriented in terms of functional abilities to deliver in a particular role. These skills are defined skills that employees need to demonstrate to be able to do their job much more effectively. Now, example of a competency model. The format of a competency model for any given job will be different depending on the specific organization and profession. So there's no one cap fits all, but there's always the best practice. But depending on different organization, different profession, you are able to tweak to suit what the organization actually is looking for or what the profession is looking out for. So what I did was to give the best practice, how it should be modeled after. So for you to have a competency model, things that are needed of you to, or some of the things that must be present in your competency model are the title, which is the name of the competency, definition, which is the overall definition of the competency that is that has been classified. Sub-competencies, the general baseline skills and behaviors that are required or that are embedded under the general name. Take for instance, I am looking at recruiting, or I am looking at being an effective customer relations person. Now I will have sub-competency under that competency of customer relations that would help me do well in delivering as a customer relation expert. Now I give example there, customer relationship. Now the definition I gave was, as part of a sale process, the ability to create a lasting relationship with customers via interaction and which is integral to the role. Defining that competency customer relationship, that is the definition of that as part of a sale process. The ability to create a lasting relationship with customers via interaction is integral to the role of a customer relation. Now, the sub-competency under it is the ability to communicate effectively with customers. Just like I said, the general competency is customer relation. Now I gave the definition of what that competency is all about. Then the next, which I'm focusing on now, is the sub-competency, which is the ability to communicate effectively with the customers. Now the behaviors that are expected to be exhibited in this particular competency module is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. So it is not just you being able to have the technical know-how, you must also have the behavioral ability, which is the emotional intelligence that will make you thrive as a customer relation specialist, which is a competency model. Now the proficiency standards, which include identifying customers' concerns and present methods for addressing those concerns. Sorry, I have like 11 charts. Let me just go through them quickly before I continue. Okay, so it's not for us to look into, it's the host that's look into it. So continue. Now, what is a competency framework? According to CIPD, a competency framework is a structure that sets out and defines each individual competency, such as problem solving or people management, required by individuals working in an organization or part of that organization. So it's actually a framework that helps the organization to deliver on its goals and objectives, that helps the department to be able to effectively carry out its tasks and duties, and also help the increment of the job role to be able to perform optimally in the role. That is what a competency framework is. It's a structure that sets out and defines each individual competency that are required as an organization, as an individual, to be successful in their task. Now, there's a little video on, a quick video on it itself.
Sir, if the video has sound, we can't hear anything, we can only see. So you may want to speak to it. Thank you.
Oh, there's no sound?
It's
No
because
sound
your
at all.
headphone is plugged. If your headphone is plugged to the system, I don't think the sound will come outside to us. So you have to remove your headphone if it's plugged to the system.
Can you hear me now? Or can you hear the sound now?
Organizations typically employ people.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Tasks, or responsibilities. These job roles will have a range of skills that are needed to be able to complete tasks to an acceptable standard.
It's not loud enough anyway.
Skills they need and the acceptable standard at which an employee must perform. The content of a competency framework will vary between different organizations. Differences may govern skills, standards, and norms accepted in the organizational arrangement. Competency are essential for achieving high organizational performance. Several significant advantages, such as content standardization. Standardization across the various segments of the organization.
I suggest you just speak to the video, sir. We can't hear anything. Thank you.
Oh, you still cannot hear?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll just skip the video then.
Safety and quality levels as these expected standards can be.
Sorry about that.
You need to unmute yourself again, sir. Sir, you will need to unmute.
Are we good to go?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, components of the competency or categories of competency clusters. Now, the competency clusters can be broadly divided into three, which is the core competency. And that core competency is what supports the organization values and mission, and often act as foundation of the framework and applies to all roles and staff members. The core competencies are those competencies that are normally regarded most times as the core value of an organization, that cuts across all the job functions. These are the necessary behaviors, attitude that an organization is actually known for. Professionalism, take for instance, ability to deliver in time delivery, and the rest of them. All these are core competencies that cut across the whole functional areas of an organization. That makes it a core competence. That means when you go to the account department, you find this particular competency present. When you go down to the retail department, you'll still find this core competency present. When you go down to the HR, so this is what the organization is known for. That is what we call the core competency. It cuts across the whole organization. Then we have the leadership competencies. Now, leadership competencies are general traits and hard skills that might identify an employee with the potential to guide, manage, or motivate others. These are those traits that we look out for as HR professionals, that and we we look at that employee and say, oh, this employee actually has a particular trait, and we believe he will be able to function as a team lead, as a manager. So these are those traits, that inherent trait that we see, or the those skills and attitude that we see in individuals that makes them leadership potentials. Now that is what we call the leadership competency. Then we also have the technical or functional competency, which applies to job roles, job family, job functions. So this is quite becoming specific. What's competencies that are peculiar to accounting, that are peculiar to human resources, that are peculiar to the audit team, that are peculiar to those specific departments that you would not really find in other departments. Take for instance, in the accounting department, you would always see high numerical ability, high analytic abilities, and the rest of them. But you might not really find those key competencies or this particular competency in the HR department, or take for instance in the retail department, or take for instance in the security department. So those are those job specific, role specific competencies that make individuals in this particular job function be able to perform at their best. Now, the last one, which is the meta competency. Now, these are competencies that are required in the future. So these are those competencies that we look at, and we look at individuals saying, oh, in the next 4 or 5 years, I believe this person will be fit enough to become the CFO of the organization, or he will become the COO of the organization. So those are those futuristic competencies that one would see in an employee that and wants to develop in those employees to make them potential high performance in the nearest future. So I said it is required in future, which relates to the recruitment of high potential individuals who the organization would like to promote and develop, for example, into senior management posts in the next 5 to 10 years. That is what we call the meta competency. Now, some uses and importance of the competency framework. Why is the competency framework very, very important for organizations, for individuals, for departments? Number one, the competency framework offers a clear and accessible outline of how roles relate to the business itself. So it helps you to align and match specific roles with the business outcome or the business goals of the organization, because we now know what a core competence is, that's what the organization stands out for in terms of its competency level. Then we now know that, look, for us to be able to function effectively as a department, we have to build our own job specific competency to match what the organization competency is. So by the time you are able to have this competency framework, it gives you this accessibility to understand and to relate the goals of your department, of each individual employee, to the goals and the success of your organization. And it provides a whole lot of clarity. You don't really need anybody to start telling you this is what is expected of you, because already there's a framework down that you can see for yourself, that you have analyzed and understood that, okay, this is what is required of me to be able to succeed and to contribute effectively to the organization. Now, number two, I say an effective competency framework plans for staff mobility and organization change while promoting company culture. Now, what I meant here was, or is, when you have a competency framework set, it helps the staff to understand, it helps you as maybe a boss or as a manager or even the staff himself to understand the level, his promotion, to understand the needed competency that he needs to be able to exhibit to become a line manager, to become a supervisor, to become maybe a head of a department or anything like that, because the framework is quite glaring. So it helps in staff mobility. It helps you to understand, oh, is this staff doing well? If he is doing well, okay, should we recommend him for promotion? Is the staff not doing well? Oh, as against what we have itemized in our competency framework, should we put him on PIP? So it helps in staff mobility. It helps in staff also, apart from promotion, in staff transfer. Taking, for instance, he is not doing well in a particular department, but he has a competency to do well in another department. He has exhibited competency to do greatly. Maybe taking, for instance, he's not doing so well in the account department, but he has exhibited competency that will make him do well in the audit department. So with that, you can also transfer that individual from the account department down to the audit. So once you have this framework, it makes this very, very glaring, and it makes mobility, staff mobility, quite easy. Now, other uses is that it helps in recruiting, it helps in training new talent effectively. From your competency framework, you are able to come up with job specification. That means those necessary things, those specifications that are actually required for an incumbent job role holder to be successful. So when you have that competency framework, you can always use that as a guide in coming up with your job roles specification, your job description, that would effectively help you recruit the right talent for that particular job role. Also, it helps in reducing skills and knowledge gap. Now you have a framework that you're working with. You now know what is required for somebody to be successful as an accountant. You now know what is required for somebody to be successful as a business analyst. You now know what is required of somebody to be successful as a risk manager, because the framework is there clearly. So with that knowledge, it helps you bridge the knowledge gap of the incumbents of that job role. You now know that, look, if this person is not performing this, and this, you now have a framework to fall back on to know, okay, we now is experiencing a skills gap here. We can actually conduct training to help bridge this particular skills and knowledge gap. Okay. Another usefulness of the competency framework is that it helps in providing professional development and leadership training. Now, for the mental competency, you understand, oh, this is what this person is actually exhibiting a little of this particular competency that is needed in the next 5 years to make him a better leader for the organization. So you now know how to help this person to become much more better in that. Sorry. I need to go back on that, or should I just continue? Okay, I think I should just continue. So it helps you to help groom that person into becoming a professional, into becoming a leader that you want that person to be in career management. So it's quite also very important for career management purpose. Implementing an effective competency framework. What are the key steps we need to follow? Number one, you need to define the purpose of creating that competency model. Why do we need a competency model? You need to sit back and ask yourself that question. Why do I need to create a competency model? What is in for me as an individual? What is in for the organization as a whole? How would it help us? So you start by asking those questions. Who will use it? Is it only for a specific department? Is it for the whole organization? Is it only for leadership cadres, or is it for everybody? So you define those particular, you give answers to those particular questions to help guide the process itself. What are their needs? Assess performance, develop specific competency, and address competency gaps. So you need to answer these questions to help guide you in the whole um, task of coming up with a competency model. You need to ask those questions to help you define why you need to create this competency model. Because the purpose of your model will determine what information and specific competency you need to include in your competency model. So it's not cast on stone. You need to be able to determine what you want to be in that competency model. How will you be able to use it to affect and effect the organization positively? Number two, you need to communicate the purpose to everybody, because people are only resistant to change or to new ideas or new initiatives when they are not carried along in the whole process. So it is quite necessary to find out if employees understand what the framework purpose is before you even start, by communicating, oh, this is what we want to do. This is how it will affect you, what it's in for you, what is in for the organization, what we all stand to benefit. Because if they don't understand how behaviors contribute to personal organization success, there's little point in updating or developing the framework. So you need to carry them along so that they will understand how that competency module would help them in delivering much more effectively, and also the needed competencies that they need to exhibit for you to be able to collate those informations and help form your framework. Now, the third thing you need to do is to collate all necessary information from both employees, top professionals in the field that you're trying to create the competency framework for, or in the industry you're trying to create the competency framework for. Because collecting data to use in your competency framework is a very, very important step. And the more you gather, the more accurate and thorough your framework will be. So it is quite obvious that you don't know it all. So you can't tell that, oh, in every job function, I know all the necessary functional traits, all the necessary functional attributes, all the core skills that individuals need to exhibit to be successful in that particular job role. So it is quite evident that you reach out to employees, reach out to other professionals in the industry to help get much more information from them, which helps you in coming up with your own framework. Now, the fourth thing you have to do is to come up with a draft. After you have been able to collect those information, what you do is you start grouping based on the information that you have collected from employees, from other professionals, and you start grouping these informations into skills, into behaviors, which are also competencies for each role, for each position. Now, with that, you have started building your competency framework. By the time you're meeting um, staff A, who is in the audit department, and he gives you, and you ask, for you to be successful as an audit personnel, what are those things on the job? What are those things that you do that makes you, that gives you the best outcome? By the time you ask those questions, you get those ideas from him. You ask another, you get those ideas from maybe a colleague. You ask the manager, you get, before you know it, you have started grouping um, those behaviors, those skills that they have been able to exhibit over time and has given them success in their job role. Once you get this, you group them and you now know, for the audits to become an efficient audit officer, you need to have dash, because the three of them are earlier said you need to have great analytical prowess, that you now know as one of your key competency is analytical prowess. Then from there, you can start defining what analytical prowess is. How do you exhibit analytical prowess from? Once you start doing those, you have started grouping and started forming your framework itself. So this is one of the ways you get it done. And you do a draft. Now, some of the things you need to consider while coming up with this draft is, number one, you have to organize the statements. That each statement you get from each individual, you try to group them into behaviors and skills statements, which helps you to further refine them. You don't just model everything up. You try to refine, you try to group each statement that you get into behaviors and skills. Then you also add and review subgroups. With the basic structure outline that you have been able to come up with, you now understand, okay, for this particular group that I have come up with, maybe the analytic prowess, I now know that under analytic prowess, there will be other subgroups that would fall under that analytic prowess as a competency that would make the framework a complete piece. Then after you have been able to have the major group, the subgroup, then that is when you can start thinking of giving it a name, identify and name the competency within a specific category to capture all the elements of that particular role or position. So you start from little and you keep building, and once you keep building, getting those information gathering, you group, after you group, you subgroup, then with those information, you now know what competency group each of these fall, and you now know how to start naming and target them to each different functional areas, or if it's a core skill or core competence, you now know what that competency is to the organization. Sorry, can I see my screen again? Okay, so number 5, you try as much as possible to revise and revise and revise until you get what you're looking for. So always try as much as possible to review your competency framework to determine if the behavior outlined are actually relevant and necessary for that role, for that job function, for that department, and for your organization as a whole. So you keep reviewing, you keep reviewing. Once you get any information from another member of the team, you go back to what you have done earlier, you review and try to see if it correlates with the new information you get. And once there is a discrepancy, you try to further dig deep to understand if this new information you have gotten is to be included into that particular competency group. So you keep reviewing until you have been able to get what you actually set out for the organization, for the department, and for individual job roles. Then after that, you can go ahead to approve, get management approval for the particular framework. Now, consider, just like I said, consider involving those in the position or the role you are building a competency framework for. You don't know it all. So it is necessary that you involve those in the position or the role you are building the competency framework for. One of the best way you can do this is to make a survey, because survey would always help you get the information that you actually need to go about successfully coming up with the framework. And I said a survey allowing all shareholders, which includes the employee, the stakeholders themselves, the management, to review the competency description, writing, or outline can help you in refining it or to gain agreement from both the employees, the employer, and other shareholder in the organization. And this would always help you to align purpose. So you need to be able to get those needed information. You need to have that relationship management skills to meet different shareholders and get their own insights on what is needed to help you get this competency framework to what will be accepted by the organization and by the employee, that actually shows, actually reflects the reality of what is on ground. Now, the last thing you need to do is implement the competency framework. So what you do is you share with your teams on how you plan to update this framework in the future. You have to take it step by step, letting them know that this is how we want to go about it. If it's starting from a department, if it's starting from just the core competency, which is expected to cut across all departments in the organization, you let them know, oh, we want to start with just the core competency alone. We want to implement that. That means everybody in the organization has to exhibit this particular competency in the organization. So you start with that, you roll out a plan. So you start with that, then you keep improving on each of them. Maybe after the core competency, which is for the organization, you can go to maybe the leadership competency. You tell them, okay, now we are done with the core competency. We feel we should start implementing the leadership competency. What are those competency framework that we have been able to analyze and see within us that makes an individual to stand out as being capable of handling a leadership position? We have it. you all know that we did work on it, so we want to implement it now. You carry them along, you roll out the plan. So with that, you don't just dump it on them. It's a gradual process thing that you need to let everybody buy into and sink into. So now some of the key things you need to consider when rolling out your framework are: number one, you always should try as much as possible to keep the framework simple, because it's simple and easy to understand. Competency frameworks help to ensure the document is useful to your team, the management staff, the shareholders, and the organization as a whole. Because once there is vagueness in the whole thing, um, you tend to get resistance from almost everybody, and before you know it, the motivation starts setting in, and that will be uh, what you set out to do for good of the organization, and for the each individual becomes something that would have a negative impact. So always try as much as possible to keep it a simple document that is easily read and understood, because with that, it promotes motivation and productivity. So number two, it is new to them. They don't understand, or they understand, but they don't have full knowledge of it. So what you need to do is offer training and coaching. You need to offer training and coaching to help people acclimatize, to help people settle in fully into the usefulness of the framework, into how to even fully optimize the framework that has been rolled out. So it is quite necessary that you offer training and coaching that helps and supports stakeholders, employees, employer, to fully come to terms and fully understand how to use the competency framework. It is necessary. And another thing you need to do is always try at every point in time that you notice that somebody has successfully used the new onboarded framework, you try as much as possible to praise and reward such a person. Now, I said review company practice and policies to make sure that you have a reward method in place, or establish one if there is none, that will help boost morale and increase productivity when you notice that somebody has successfully implemented or successfully used that competency framework to achieve a set goal. With this, every other person that I have seen the way this other person was treated for being able to successfully apply and implement this framework in his job role, would always want to give their best into coming very conversant with that framework. So you need to always praise anybody that has been able to successfully implement the framework at the earliest time possible. So what I did was to come up with a few examples of how a competency framework looks like. Now, from this, you can see what I set out in my third slide or fourth slide to describe that the competency framework always comes with, number one, the definition, the title, number one, of the competency. Number two, the definition or the description of what that competency is. And number three, the level of that competency or the mastery level of that competency. That's what is expected in each of that, in that particular competency. That's the subgroup that is embedded under that competency. Then number four, the behavioral based performance indicator for that competency level, that when somebody has exhibited that behavior, you would say, oh, the person um, has successfully implemented the competency module itself. Take for instance, the time management. I said the ability to effectively plan and recognize one's own time in order to meet deadline, prioritize tasks, and make the most efficient use of time. That is what time management is. Then under the time management, you now have the mastery level or the subgroup. Now, for the basic, and I've said the basic, can manage own time. That is a subgroup. I can manage just my own time. That is at the basic level. That's a subgroup. Then at the intermediate level, I can manage my own and others' time. That is another subgroup. It's a competency that once I'm able to achieve this particular, I'm able to achieve that particular task of managing my own time and other person's own time, then I know that I've moved from the basic framework down into becoming an intermediate. Then that is how you keep improving. And it also tells us the different level of utilization in terms of in the level of our careers. Like for instance, a manager must have been able to exhibit both the basic, the intermediate, the advanced, and to a large extent, a proficient level of a particular competency framework before such person would have been given the title of a manager. So for each role or for each competency, that is how it is. The level of your career will determine where you are currently in terms of the mastery of that particular competency, of that particular competency. Now, the behavioral-based performance for time management, I said, number one, I must be able to prioritize tasks effectively. I must be able to set and meet my deadlines always. I must be able to manage my time efficiently. I must always try as much as possible to avoid procrastination. And I must always use my time management tool very effectively. So by the time I start exhibiting these particular traits, then it is an indicator that, okay, I have been able to effectively master the competency called time management. So for each of these competency, this is how they all work. So you have for the problem solving, you have for communication, you have for teamwork. For the functional levels, you have analytic skills, you have numerical ability, and the rest of them. So depending on the type of competency that you're working on, is it a functional competency? Is it a leadership competency? Is it a behavioral competency? It will inform you what the subgroup would be and the level of mastery and the different indicators that are accrued to that particular competency. Now, for the HR profession, Society of Human Resource Management, in their SHAM box, which is SHAM Book of applied skill and knowledge had come up with this competency framework to say for you to be successful as an HR professional, you must be able to exhibit and also come to terms with these competencies for you to thrive as an HR professional. So what they did in their Shambask was to group these competencies into two major competency group, which they call the functional and the behavioral. Then the behavioral was further grouped into three major clusters, which is the leadership, the interpersonal, and the business. Now, while the functional was grouped into also three major clusters, which is the people, the workplace, and the organization. So under the three broad cluster of the behavioral competency, you have things like leadership, navigation, ethical practices, diversity and equity and inclusionness, communication, relationship management, global mindset, business acumen, consultation, analytical aptitude, and the rest of them. While under the functional, which is the people, workplace, and organization, you have 14 functional areas of the human resources that we all know. Things like learning and development, talent management, uh, compensation and benefits, uh, change management, and the rest of them. They fall under these functional areas, which is the people, workplace, and organization. So that is how the SHAM BASC is being organized, that these are the necessary competencies that a proficient HR professional must exhibit to be able to succeed as an HR professional. So I also went ahead to come up or to put up what the UNESCO competency framework is. Each organization has each of those global organizations has a competency framework. So I decided to come up with some of them so that we can see how theirs is. Now, for the UNESCO, this is how theirs actually look like, UNESCO competency framework. And they have 3 or 4 core competency, which is commitment to the organization, integrity, diversity, and professionalism. That is what the core competence module for UNESCO is. That means what the organization is known for, what is known across the organization is commitment to the organization, integrity, diversity, and professionalism. Then from there, we have other key competencies like the managerial competencies, which becomes the functional competency that each department actually, which is actually specific to individual departments and individual job roles. So this is how the UNESCO competency framework actually looks like. And also this is how the OECD competency framework actually looks like also. Sorry, let me take that back. Sorry, I'll share the screen again. Sorry about that. Okay, it's coming up now. Please, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Sorry about that. Can you see it now? Showing me, showing here.
Well, I can't see it.
Sorry about that.
It's showing now.
Okay.
But not full screen.
Yes, I'm taking it to the full screen. I believe we can have a full screen now. Or we're
Yes,
having
sir.
okay. So this is what the OED frameworks look like. Now it comprises of 3 major clusters, and the blue cluster group, which they call the delivery related competency, the purple cluster group, which they call the interpersonal competency, and the green cluster group, which relates to strategic competencies. So this is how their competency framework looks like. This is what they are known for as an organization, which is also broken down into different and various departments. Now, for the delivery related competency cluster, you have things like analytical thinking, which is a subgroup, achievement focus, drafting skills, flexible thinking, managing resources, teamwork, and team leadership. All these are subgroups under the blue cluster called deliverable related competency. Now, for the purple cluster, which is the interpersonal competency, you have other subgroups like client focus, diplomatic sensitivity, influencing, negotiating, organization knowledge, and the rest of them. While for the green cluster, which the name of the major group is called strategic competency, you have the subgroup to include developing talents, organization alignment, strategic networking, and strategic thinking. So putting all this together is what make OED OED. It what makes them stand out as an organization. It what makes them achieve all they set out to do, because everybody knows that, look, there's a framework and we all know what we need to those skills that we need to exhibit for us to be successful in our tasks as individual, in our tasks as a department, and in our tasks as an organization. So with this, it makes it seamless and it makes it quite easy for one to align their purpose and their skills with their job role. Now, in my conclusion, I had to put this up, and I said that a competency framework may be what is missing in your organization, might just be the missing piece to help take your organization from just being an average organization into becoming one of the best organization out there. That might just be the only missing piece or the missing glue to take you as an organization to where you ought to be. So with that, I say thank you to everybody for your time and attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that excellent presentation. Do we have any questions or comments in the house? I saw one question, but I don't know if you have treated it. The question is from Ayotunde Ogundari. 3 questions actually is in the chat box. Okay, the first one says, is technical competency framework company specific, or is it the same for the same job families across companies?
Okay. The technical competency framework might have you might have those that are general to that particular job role or job function, and also inclusive in that same technical framework, there will be those that are specific to your organization. So it's not cast on stone. Yes, there'll be those that there'll be definitely those that are general. Take for instance, in the accounting field, we know that one of the technical framework is that you have to be analytic. You need to have the analytics, analytical skills. Now it is general. It is general across all industries. It is general across all sectors. We know that for the accounting, yes, this is what one of the key competency as a technical competency that you need to exhibit. But also still in that cluster of functional technical competency are those that will be specific to your organization, to even the department itself.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The second question here says, is competency framework a must-have like policies for companies, or is it a need-based exercise? Thank you.
If you want to be successful as an organization, then it's a must-have. It's just the truth. I'll give an example why I said it's a must-have. I've seen an organization that actually, because they don't have this framework, because this framework provides support and a guide to the organization in terms of recruitment, promotion, talent management, performance management, and the rest. So it provides the basic support for your organization to do well. I just like I said. So I've seen an organization that actually employed a factory manager from an FMCG to become the chief of staff, to become a director and a chief of staff in a fast-paced financial organization. Now, that is actually a mismatch. Simply, and this happened simply because there is no framework to guide that recruitment process, to guide that particular decision of bringing a factory manager from an FMCG that has no idea of the financial outfit or the financial sector into becoming the chief of staff, and also a chief of staff to coordinate the affairs of all the staff in a fast-paced financial outfit. Already, I can categorically say that they are already setting that particular fellow for failure and for doom, because except he's able to build the competency that is needed to succeed in that particular role, if he's able to even identify and know those competency levels. So once you have that framework, it helps you align. It helps you know, okay, this is what is needed here. This is what is needed there. Once I do this, I achieve this. Once I'm bringing this person, I know that there's a mismatch. So most definitely, yes, the competency frameworks is quite important because it helps you in making effective decision when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to succession planning. I know of a certainty that if you want to have a good succession program, then you need to have, number one, the two major things you need to have. Number one is the competency framework, and number two is the McKinsey 9-box, because these two tools actually work together. So yes, it's a must-have.
Thank you so much, sir. The last question from the same person. In building a competency framework, should the input from the company that needs it, or by general research thrown to all organizations or same sector organization? Thank you.
Can you come again, sir? You had a little network distortion.
Apologies for that. In building competency framework, should the input be from the company that needs it, or by general research thrown to all organizations in the same sector organization?
Okay.
In the industry.
Okay. I had answered that before now, but I'll see answer it again. Core competencies are those competencies that cut across the organization. Now, they can be general, they can also be specific to your organization itself, to what your organization stands for. So to answer your question, I would say you would need, as a matter of fact, to consult both your internal shareholders, that means the stakeholders of the organization, which is the management or the owners, as to get idea of what they want the organization to be known for, those particular competencies that they want the organization to be known for. What are the key skills or attitude that they want the organization to be known for as a whole? And also you need to be able to get ideas and information from job role incumbents, which are the employees when it comes to your functional and technical competencies, because they are the one that are handling it. So they understand over the years what they have done to achieve or to record the greatest or highest success in that particular job role. So yes, you need to consult in-house, your internal. Then also you need to consult experts from outside your organization, but within your industry, people that has done it all, know it all, see it, that has seen it all in that particular industry. You need to also tap from their wealth of knowledge to say, oh, this is my organization. This is what we are planning to do. I know you've been there in that space for long. How have your organization been able to achieve this and this and this and that? What did you people do? What were those skills that you focused and you hinged on to get to where you are? Then you also get that knowledge, and then you bring it to your table and you sieve the information and you keep refining and refining and refining until you're able to come out with something that best suits your organization in terms of the core competencies, in terms of the meta competencies, in terms of the functional competencies, and in terms of the leadership competencies.
Thank you so much. The final question here from Pelatia. She says, thank you so much for this beautiful session. I have a framework I worked on for my organization, but implementation has been a problem. The management team pays little or no attention to the implementation, same as the managing director. So I struggle to implement, as most staff don't want to implement it, as the few management won't do anything about it. What do I do in this situation? The staff are even underperforming. especially the sales team? Thank you.
Okay. Shall I start from what you didn't do right? I think let me start from what you didn't do right before I prefer possible solution. Number one, I think what you didn't do right was communication. Before, just like I said, before engaging in the process, you need to carry, that's why I said the shareholders, and the shareholders are the owners of the organization, the management, and the employees. Yes, that's what in the HR space, what shareholders are. So if you had carried everybody along before coming up with, or in the process of coming up with this framework, then I don't think you would be meeting this stiff resistance, because most definitely you must have been able before now to get the management buy-in. And once you have gotten the management buy-in from the onset, they won't be having a cold feet, because already you have shown them why it is quite necessary for you to come up with this competency framework, what they tend to, or how it tends to benefit the organization. So I guess you didn't do that, or if you did, you didn't hit it the way you need to, or you didn't get it right the way you need to. So that is for what you didn't do right. So for what you can do is to go back to the drawing board. And how do you go back to the drawing board? Is by meeting each shareholder again and let them know where the organization is currently, why you think, or giving them good reason why they should go with the competency framework and how it will benefit them as an organization, as a job role holder, and also as the head of a department. Now, if you are to meet your management and tell the management, look, sir, this is our sales for the last quarter. You bring this to them and they see it. And you're telling them, sir, do you know the solution to this problem? We have the solution to this problem. And the solution to this problem is if you allow us to onboard this competency framework that we have created. Now, how would this competency framework be a solution? Sir, with this competency framework, the sales staff will know what is required of them as skills, as a technical or as a functional competency, what they need to be able, what they need as individuals to be able to exhibit to be successful in that sales. They need to have good relationship management. So, sir, if A, B, C, and D that has been identified here is not having this competency called relationship management, there's no way they will be able to make sales and improve the bottom line. So, sir, with this framework, once we are able to implement, then we know that we can start bridging this knowledge gap that we have identified. So by the time you are able to give your management reasons and how the competency framework would help the staff improve, you will start to get buy-in from them. And for the staff themselves, everybody always wants something that will make their job and task easier. So once you're able to prove to them that by implementing the competency framework, their tasks and their job role becomes seamless and becomes easier for them, they will not be facing so much hurdles in getting their deliverables, like 100%. then you would always see them trying to, wanting to conform and to align to the framework that has been put forward. That is what you need to do, is let them know what is in for them. You need to sell it to them, letting them know what is in for them. The management would always want to know what is in for me when you implement this thing. What is in for me as a management, as for us as management? The stakeholders would want to know, how does it affect the bottom line of the organization? The employee would want to know, what would be the benefits accruable from implementing this? How will it make my job easier? So by the time you are able to prove to them that this framework is what they need to achieve the best success in every front, then you always get that buy-in, and you see the transitioning will be seamless.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hessien, for your response to these questions and for your teaching and presentation you have so generously shared with us out of your wealth of experience. Do you have any closing remarks as we draw tonight's session to an excellent close?
I would say thank you to everybody that has been on the session. Sorry we actually started late. It was a pleasure being here with everybody. Thank you, Mr. Oluyemi, for giving me the opportunity to also contribute to the HR body of knowledge as a professional. So thank you, everybody. And I hope we'll all try to come up with competency framework as because it's quite needed as HR professional to help us take our organization to the best place where they will always want to be. And the onus is on us to actually get this done.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, we'll share and upload tonight's session on the YouTube channel. Please feel free to check and go through again and again, and also check out the other excellent videos around various HR domains that have been uploaded. Please plan to attend tomorrow's session, 7:30 in the evening. Is going to be another wonderful time. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Nice.